What would you do if the life you thought was perfect turned out to be a meticulously crafted lie? Imagine discovering that the man who vowed to love and honor you had been living a double life, not just with another woman, but with secrets so shocking they rewrote the very foundation of your family. For Jasmine Carter, this nightmare became reality when a single piece of evidence, a blood-red lipstick stain, unraveled 15 years of marriage, trust, and identity. As she peeled back layers of betrayal, she unearthed truths far darker than infidelity. This is a story of deception, resilience, and one woman's fight to reclaim her power from the ashes of a shattered illusion. Are you ready to uncover what lies beneath? It was the summer of 2008, a time when life seemed to hum along like a well-oiled machine. Jasmine Carter sat in her sunlit kitchen, sipping coffee as the morning light streamed through the gauzy curtains. The air smelled faintly of lavender from the candle she had lit earlier, mingling with the aroma of freshly baked blueberry muffins. Outside, the sprawling lawn of their colonial-style home stretched out in perfect symmetry, its emerald blades glinting under the golden rays of the rising sun. From the outside, it was the quintessential suburban dream, a pristine white picket fence, flower beds bursting with vibrant blooms, and a family that appeared to have it all. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. Jasmine glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 7:30 a.m., and the house was already alive with activity. Her twin boys, Alex and Ryan, were upstairs getting ready for school, their laughter echoing down the staircase. Emma, her eldest daughter, sat at the kitchen island, practicing piano scales on a small keyboard app on her tablet. The scene was idyllic, perfect even, but Jasmine couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off. She had noticed it weeks ago, maybe even months, but had brushed it aside as stress or fatigue. After all, Louis, her husband of 15 years, was a man who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. Or so she thought. Dr. Louis Carter was a name whispered with reverence in medical circles. As one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the region, he had earned a reputation for saving lives with his steady hands and unwavering dedication. His colleagues often joked that if anyone could perform miracles, it was Louis. At hospital fundraisers, he would stand tall beside Jasmine, his arm draped casually around her waist, raising a champagne flute to toast their success. "Jasmine makes it all possible," he would say with a smile, his voice carrying just enough sincerity to make the crowd believe him. And they did. To everyone who knew them, the Carters were the epitome of marital bliss, a power couple whose love story seemed straight out of a fairy tale. But behind closed doors, the reality was far less picturesque. Over the past few years, Jasmine had begun to notice subtle changes in Louis's behavior. He worked longer hours, citing staffing shortages at the hospital. Weekend golf outings with colleagues became more frequent, and their once intimate conversations dwindled into perfunctory exchanges about schedules and household logistics. Gone were the late-night talks where they dreamed about the future. Instead, silence filled the spaces between them, heavy and suffocating. One evening, after tucking the children into bed, Jasmine approached Louis in his study. The room was dimly lit, the soft glow of his desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Papers were scattered haphazardly, and the faint hum of his computer monitor filled the air. Louis sat slouched in his chair, scrolling through emails with a furrowed brow. She hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Is everything okay between us?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Louis looked up, startled by the question. For a brief moment, his expression softened, but then it hardened again. "Just tired, Jen," he replied curtly, turning back to his screen without missing a beat. "The Jenkins case is complicated." That night, he slept in the guest room, claiming exhaustion. Jasmine lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with questions. Was this normal? Was she overreacting? She called her sister the next day, seeking reassurance. "The promotion comes with so much responsibility," she confided over the phone. "Men in power often change, Jen." Her sister's words lingered in her mind, but Jasmine dismissed them as cynicism born from her own failed marriage. Still, the distance between her and Lewis continued to grow. Then came the physical withdrawal. Lewis claimed fatigue from 18-hour surgeries, brushing off her attempts to reconnect. She bought new lingerie, planned date nights, and tried every suggestion she found in women's magazines to reignite the spark. But Lewis participated half-heartedly, checking his phone throughout their carefully orchestrated evenings. The intimacy they once shared faded into memory, replaced by an icy detachment that left Jasmine feeling hollow. By the spring of 2009, the cracks in their relationship had widened into chasms. Lewis's promotion to chief of cardiac surgery brought new pressures, and Jasmine organized a celebratory party at their home, inviting his colleagues and their families. Lewis smiled and thanked her publicly, but later criticized her privately, accusing her of embarrassing him in front of the hospital board. That night, he slept in the guest room again, claiming exhaustion. Jasmine convinced herself it was temporary, the stress of the job, the demands of parenthood. But deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. On the morning of their 15th anniversary, Jasmine decided to surprise Lewis with a romantic weekend getaway to Napa Valley, where they had honeymooned years ago. She needed to sync their calendars and ensure he was free. His phone lay on the counter while he showered, and she picked it up, intending only to check his schedule. But as fate would have it, a text notification popped up. It was from Dr. Rihanna Harrington, a name Jasmine vaguely recognized from hospital events. The message read, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. When are you leaving her?" Jasmine's hand trembled as she opened the message thread. Hundreds of texts dated back 8 months, each one more intimate than the last. There were plans made while she was taking Emma to recitals or helping the twins with science projects. There were cruel jokes at her expense, mocking her efforts to keep their marriage intact. And then there was this. She's planning some big anniversary surprise. Poor thing still thinks there's something to celebrate. Her vision blurred as tears welled up in her eyes. She quietly replaced the phone, made his coffee as usual, and kissed him goodbye as he left for the hospital. Then, alone in the kitchen, she vomited until there was nothing left but bitter bile. That night, after the children were asleep, she confronted him in their bedroom, the same room where they had conceived their children, where they had held each other through miscarriages and celebrated the miracle of IVF. "Are you sleeping with Rihanna Harrington?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. Lewis didn't flinch. He removed his watch, placed it methodically on the nightstand and said, "Yes. How long? Does it matter?" He looked at her with such coldness that she no longer recognized him. "I want a divorce, Jasmine," he continued, his tone calculated and cruel. "I've outgrown this life, outgrown us." Jasmine felt as though the ground had been ripped out from beneath her feet. She had given 15 years of her life to this man, sacrificed her teaching career to support his ambitions, managed their home and children so he could focus on advancing his career. And now, he dismissed her contributions as trivial. "You'll be taken care of financially," he added, as if discussing a business transaction. "The children will adjust. Children always do." That night, Lewis slept in the guest room again. Jasmine lay awake, reconstructing the past 15 years, wondering if anything had been real. By morning, he had left for the hospital before dawn, leaving behind a business card for his lawyer. The perfect life she thought they had built had been a mirage. The cracks had always been there. She had just been too dedicated to their illusion to see them. What Jasmine didn't know then was that the lipstick stain and affair were merely the visible fractures in a foundation that had been compromised from the beginning. Lewis's betrayal ran deeper than she could possibly imagine, and the true nature of his deception would soon turn her world upside down in ways that would make his affair seem trivial by comparison. The day after Lewis left his lawyer's business card on the kitchen counter, Jasmine found herself sitting in the sleek, modern office of Patricia Winters, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Oak Heights. The room was adorned with minimalist decor, black leather chairs, glass tables, and shelves lined with law books that exuded an air of authority. Patricia, a woman in her late 50s with sharp features and piercing gray eyes, listened intently as Jasmine recounted the details of her crumbling marriage. Her advice was clear and concise. Document everything, especially the finances. That evening, after tucking the children into bed with reassuring smiles and promises that Daddy was simply busy at the hospital, Jasmine opened their home safe. Inside lay 15 years of financial records, tax returns, investment statements, property deeds, all neatly organized in folders labeled by year. As she began sorting through the documents, discrepancies began to emerge, like dark threads woven into what she had believed was a seamless fabric. Monthly withdrawals of $5,000, $7,500, sometimes $10,000, had been siphoned from their joint savings account into an entity called Riverside Holdings. No explanation. No paper trail showing where this money ultimately went. Over the past 2 years, nearly $250,000 had disappeared. The next morning, Jasmine contacted their bank. The account manager was hesitant, evasive even, but eventually confirmed her suspicions. Riverside Holdings was a limited liability company registered solely in Lewis's name. The money trail ended there. During her follow-up meeting with Patricia, Jasmine slid the bank statements across the attorney's mahogany desk. Patricia examined the documents through narrow reading glasses, her expression unreadable. "Is this normal in divorces?" Jasmine asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Heidi assets." "Unfortunately, yes," Patricia replied, tapping the papers thoughtfully. "But this pattern suggests something more calculated, something long-term." It was during this conversation that Patricia mentioned Dr. Kelvin Brooks. "The name came up in another case of mine," she explained. "Former colleague of your husband. Left Ashford Medical Center 3 years ago under interesting circumstances. Might be worth a conversation." Jasmine remembered Dr. Brooks vaguely, a quiet, dedicated man who always seemed slightly uncomfortable at hospital functions. He had vanished from the medical community without explanation. When she had asked Lewis about it years ago, he had dismissed her curiosity with a wave of his hand. "Professional differences. Nothing interesting," he had said. Tracking down Dr. Brooks took 5 calls and several dead ends, but eventually, she reached him at a modest family clinic 40 miles outside the city. His receptionist was protective, but when Jasmine mentioned Lewis's name, she immediately transferred the call. "Mrs. Carter." Dr. Brooks' voice carried a weight that made Jasmine's stomach tighten. "I've been expecting your call for years." They met at a coffee shop halfway between their homes. Dr. Brooks had aged considerably since Jasmine had last seen him. Deep lines framed his eyes, and his hair was prematurely gray. He ordered black coffee and studied her with a clinical gaze. "I knew this day would come," he said quietly. "I just didn't know which of us would break first, me with my conscience or Lewis with his arrogance." Over the next hour, Dr. Brooks revealed information that shattered what remained of Jasmine's world. The fertility clinic at Ashford had a problem, he explained, his voice barely above a whisper. Several couples reported failed IVF procedures despite optimal conditions. He had noticed inconsistencies in the lab reports, slight differences in documentation versus actual procedures, and began investigating quietly. The clinic director, Dr. Mercer, was falsifying results, substituting specimens, and manipulating success rates to maintain the clinic's reputation and funding. When Dr. Brooks confronted him, Dr. Mercer admitted Lewis was not only aware but complicit. "Originally, it was career advancement," Dr. Brooks continued. "Mercer was on the board that later promoted Lewis to chief. But with your case," he hesitated. "Lewis has a hereditary heart condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Mild in his case, but with a 50% chance of passing it to his children. A surgeon with his ambition couldn't risk children with a condition that might reflect poorly on his professional judgment." Jasmine gripped the edge of the table to steady herself. "So during our IVF treatments, he ensured his sperm was never actually used?" Dr. Brooks nodded grimly. The clinic used anonymous donors instead. Lewis knew exactly what he was doing. Before leaving, Dr. Brooks handed Jasmine a thumb drive containing hospital records, lab reports, and Lewis's signature authorizing procedural modifications. He also recommended a discreet genetic testing service. That night, after the children were asleep, Jasmine collected DNA samples, hair from their brushes, saliva from their toothbrushes, and sent them off for analysis. The waiting period was excruciating. Lewis had accelerated the divorce proceedings, demanding custody evaluations and claiming Jasmine's emotional instability made her an unfit mother. His lawyer sent intimidating letters questioning her ability to financially support the children and suggesting her contribution to the family had been minimal. They offered a settlement that would leave her with barely enough to survive, a calculated move to force her into submission. Meanwhile, Jasmine maintained appearances. She helped the twins with their science projects, attended Emma's recital, and smiled politely at school drop-offs. When other mothers asked about Lewis's absence, she would say, "You know how it is at the hospital," and nod knowingly. But behind closed doors, she delved into research on medical ethics violations and fertility fraud. The cases she found were devastating: doctors using their own sperm instead of donors, clinics mixing up embryos, families discovering biological truths decades later. But nowhere did she find a case like hers. A husband deliberately ensuring his children weren't biologically his, creating a family on false pretenses while maintaining the fiction of genetic connection. The testing lab called on a Tuesday morning. The woman's voice was professional and detached. "We have your results, Mrs. Carter. Would you like me to email them, or would you prefer to discuss them over the phone?" "Email," Jasmine whispered, knowing she needed to see the evidence with her own eyes. The clinical language of the report couldn't soften the blow. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested children. The probability of paternity is 0%. Jasmine printed 3 copies, one for her lawyer, one for the safety deposit box she had opened in her name only, and one that she slipped into a cream-colored envelope with the Ashford Medical Center logo taken from Lewis's home office. As she prepared for the battle ahead, her hands no longer shook. The devastation had crystallized into something harder, colder. This wasn't just about an affair or hidden assets. This was about a fundamental betrayal that had begun before their children were even conceived. Lewis had deprived her of choice, constructing an elaborate lie that shaped 15 years of her life, her identity as a mother, and their children's very existence. With the DNA test results in hand, Jasmine's grief transformed into something sharper, more focused. Lewis had constructed a false reality for 15 years, and now she would dismantle it, methodically, completely. Armed with the DNA test results and the thumb drive from Dr. Brooks, Jasmine embarked on a mission to uncover the full extent of Lewis's deception. Her first step was reaching out to other families who had undergone fertility treatments at Ashford during Lewis's oversight. Dr. Brooks provided a list of 27 couples who might have been affected. Most refused to speak with her, unwilling to question the origins of their precious children. However, 5 agreed to meet. The Millers had twins who bore no resemblance to them. The Patels had a daughter with unexpected medical issues. The Johnsons, Garcias, and Wilsons each had stories of miraculous conceptions after multiple failed attempts. Conceptions that occurred shortly after Dr. Mercer took personal interest in their cases. "We were just so grateful," Sarah Wilson told Jasmine, tears streaming down her face. "We never questioned the how." Jasmine's search led her to Jessica Fletcher, a former nurse who had worked at the fertility clinic for 12 years. They met at Jessica's small apartment outside the city, where she lived surrounded by filing cabinets. "I kept records of everything," Jessica explained, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled out a leather-bound journal. Patient names, procedural modifications, signatures authorizing changes. "They thought I destroyed it all when I left." "Why didn't you report them?" Jasmine asked. Jessica's smile was bitter. "I did. Hospital administration, medical ethics board, even the police. Every time the investigation disappeared." "Your husband has powerful friends, Mrs. Carter." She showed Jasmine entries dating back 8 years, meticulous documentation of specimen substitutions, falsified consent forms, procedural irregularities. Lewis's signature appeared repeatedly, authorizing protocol adjustments in cases with genetic concerns. Jessica turned to a page marked with Jasmine's name and dates matching their IVF procedures. Special instruction from Dr. Carter himself. Specimen replacement authorized due to quality concerns. No donor identification recorded. Jasmine photographed every page, every signature, every damning note. As she was leaving, Jessica pressed a business card into her hand. Medical Ethics Investigation Unit. Ask for Agent Dawson. Tell him I sent you. Robert Dawson worked for a joint task force investigating healthcare fraud. He had been building a case against Ashford for 18 months, but couldn't penetrate the wall of silence surrounding the fertility clinic. Your evidence could be the key, he explained during their first meeting. But we need more. Financial records showing kickbacks, recorded admissions of guilt, testimony from someone currently inside. Jasmine committed herself to gathering what he needed while maintaining the facade of a woman reluctantly accepting divorce. She smiled sadly at Lewis during mediation sessions, agreed to temporary custody arrangements, and pretended to consider his insulting financial settlement. You're being surprisingly amicable, Jasmine, Lewis remarked after one particularly tense meeting with their lawyers. The children come first, she replied softly. I just want what's best for everyone. Lewis's confidence grew with each concession she appeared to make. He brought Rihanna to school functions, introduced her to their friends, and even had her stay overnight when the children visited his new downtown apartment. All the while, Jasmine quietly recorded conversations, photographed documents, and built her case. Her investigation took an unexpected turn when she hired a private investigator to look into Rihanna's background. The report revealed something stunning. Rihanna wasn't just Lewis's colleague and lover. She was Mary Harrington's daughter. Mary Harrington had been Lewis's patient 5 years ago, a routine valve replacement that ended in tragedy when Lewis allegedly made an error during the procedure. The hospital investigation cleared him of wrongdoing, concluding Mary had failed to disclose a medication that complicated her surgery. The truth, buried in records Agent Dawson uncovered, was that Lewis had been operating on minimal sleep after a weekend with Rihanna in Chicago. His error was covered up, the records falsified, and the family paid off with Ashford funds. Mary's husband died a year later from stress-induced heart failure, leaving Rihanna alone. She changed her last name, erased connections to her past, and methodically worked her way into Lewis's life, first as a colleague, then as his mistress. Her revenge had been years in the making, just as Jasmine's was now. Jasmine debated confronting Rihanna, perhaps even suggesting they work together, but decided against it. Rihanna's motivations were emotional and volatile, while Jasmine's needed to be calculated and precise. Over the next month, she gathered testimonies from former clinic employees, documented the money trail from Ashford to Riverside Holdings to offshore accounts, and secured sworn statements from patients whose treatments had been compromised. Agent Dawson built a legal case while Jasmine constructed something more personal: the complete dismantling of Lewis Carter's carefully crafted image. During one co-parenting discussion, Jasmine subtly steered the conversation toward the fertility treatments. The twins have your eyes, she mentioned casually. Good genes, Lewis replied, distracted by his phone. Do you ever wonder if they inherited your heart condition? His head snapped up. What heart condition? Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Dr. Brooks mentioned it. Lewis's face darkened. Brooks should keep his mouth shut about things that don't concern him. Don't our children's health concerns concern him? Concern me. There's nothing to worry about. I had them tested years ago. They're fine. How could you test them without telling me? I'm their father and a doctor. I made a medical decision. The recording captured every word. His acknowledgement of the condition. His admission of testing their children without her knowledge. his continued pretense of biological connection. It was the final piece Agent Dawson needed. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The annual Ashford Medical Center Gala was approaching, the most prestigious event on the hospital's calendar. Lewis had been selected to receive the Physician of the Year award for his groundbreaking contributions to cardiac surgery and unwavering ethical standards. The invitation arrived at their house, still addressed to both of them despite their pending divorce. Lewis texted that he'd be taking Rihanna as his date, but invited Jasmine to attend if it wouldn't be too awkward. Jasmine replied with a perfect blend of wounded dignity and gracious acceptance. "I wouldn't miss it. You deserve this recognition." What Lewis didn't know was that Jasmine had already met with the hospital board chairman, sharing select pieces of evidence. A special session had been scheduled immediately preceding the gala, a session where Agent Dawson would present the full case against Lewis, Dr. Mercer, and the fertility clinic. As Jasmine prepared her gala dress, a sleek black gown that Rihanna had once mocked as "suburban mom tries sophistication" in a text to Lewis, she received notification that Lewis and Rihanna would be celebrating at Vincenzo's after the award ceremony. Their special restaurant, where he had proposed 15 years ago, would be the perfect finishing touch to her carefully orchestrated revelation. The envelope with the DNA results was ready. The authorities were prepared. Every detail had been considered. For the first time in months, Jasmine felt a sense of calm certainty. Lewis had spent 15 years constructing a lie. Tomorrow night, the truth would finally be told. The night of the Ashford Gala arrived with perfect dramatic timing. Thunderstorms loomed on the horizon, their ominous clouds illuminated by occasional flashes of lightning, yet the rain held off, leaving the sky dark with potential. Jasmine entered the hotel ballroom alone, wearing the black dress that Lewis had always said made her look trying too hard. Her hair was swept up elegantly, diamond earrings catching the light, a gift from a husband who no longer existed. She moved through the crowd of medical elites with practiced grace, drawing sympathetic glances from colleagues' wives who had always seen her as nothing more than an accessory to Lewis's brilliance. Across the room, Lewis stood near the stage, holding court with his usual charm. His arm was possessively draped around Rihanna's waist, who wore crimson, the same shade as the lipstick that had started this cascade of revelations. Hospital board members clustered around them, laughing at his jokes and admiring his perfect companion. To the casual observer, they were the picture of success. What they didn't know was that the secret board meeting had concluded just 30 minutes earlier. Jasmine had watched from a side room as Agent Dawson presented the evidence. Financial records, patient testimonies, Jessica Fletcher's detailed documentation. The board members' expressions transformed from skepticism to shock to grim resolution. The hospital's legal counsel had immediately contacted the district attorney's office. Lewis, of course, knew none of this as he accepted congratulations for his upcoming award. He didn't know that police officers were positioned at every exit, waiting for the signal from Agent Dawson. He didn't know that his perfectly constructed life was minutes from implosion. Jasmine mingled quietly, accepting condolences for her failing marriage from colleagues' wives. Margaret Reynolds, the chief of surgery's wife, whispered, "So brave of you to come tonight." Her sympathy genuine even as her eyes tracked Lewis and Rihanna. Jasmine replied with a smile that made her visibly uncomfortable. "I wouldn't miss seeing Lewis receive the recognition he deserves." The award ceremony proceeded as planned. Dr. Elena Winters, the hospital board chair, decided that the public revelation would be more effective than a quiet arrest. Lewis ascended the stage to thunderous applause, accepting the crystal trophy with practiced humility. "Medicine isn't just science," he intoned into the microphone. "It's a sacred trust between doctor and patient. Ethics must guide every decision, every procedure, every moment in the operating room." Jasmine watched Rihanna during his speech. The slight tension in her shoulders, the calculated adoration in her eyes. She was playing a role, just as Jasmine had for 15 years, but for very different reasons. Their gazes met briefly across the room, and something passed between them, a recognition of sorts. Two women who knew the real Lewis Carter. After the ceremony, Lewis and Rihanna left for Vincenzo's, just as Jasmine had anticipated. She followed 20 minutes later, the cream-colored envelope secure in her clutch. The restaurant hadn't changed. White tablecloths, soft lighting, Italian opera playing softly in the background. The maitre d' recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Carter. How wonderful to see you again. Your husband mentioned you might join them." Heading toward Lewis was either supremely confident or setting the stage for some public humiliation. Either way, it played perfectly into Jasmine's plan. They were seated at their old favorite table near the windows. Lewis had ordered the 1982 Bordeaux they had shared on their anniversary 5 years ago. The bottle between them cost more than a month of groceries for their children. Lewis saw her first. His expression shifted from surprise to smugness, clearly assuming she had come to make some desperate plea. Rihanna turned, her perfect features arranging themselves into a mask of polite concern. "Jasmine." Lewis's voice carried that patronizing tone he had perfected. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" Jasmine approached the table, calm and collected. "You told the maitre d' I might join you, a courtesy mention I assume. I didn't think you'd actually come." Rihanna shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps I should give you two a moment." "Please stay," Jasmine replied, meeting her gaze directly. "After all, you've earned your place at this table. Rihanna, or should I call you Rihanna Harrington?" The color drained from Rihanna's face. Lewis's brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about? Rihanna knows, doesn't she?" Jasmine's voice was steady, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Rihanna, daughter of Mary Harrington, the patient whose death you covered up, Lewis. The woman whose heart valve you replaced while exhausted from your weekend with her daughter in Chicago. Ironic, isn't it?" Lewis turned to Rihanna, comprehension dawning. "Is this true?" Her silence was confirmation enough. Jasmine seized the momentary confusion to place the cream-colored envelope on the table. "Congratulations on your freedom," she said quietly. "I think you'll find this interesting reading." As Jasmine placed the envelope containing the DNA results on the table, Rihanna's composure cracked. She stood abruptly, knocking over her wine glass. "You knew," she accused Lewis, her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. "You knew who I was and you still. Tears streamed down her face as the weight of her mother's death and Lewis's manipulation crashed over her. Jasmine intervened, her voice calm but firm. "None of this was your fault, Rihanna. But the truth needed to come out, for both of us." The raw emotion in the room was palpable, leaving even the seasoned agents momentarily stunned. Lewis's hand trembled slightly as he opened it, removing the DNA test results. Jasmine watched as his expression transformed. Confusion, then disbelief, then horror, as understanding dawned. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Is it? You ensured your sperm was never used during our IVF treatments. You falsified medical records. You lied to me for 15 years about our children's very existence." Rihanna stared at the paper, then at Lewis. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing," Lewis snapped, attempting to regain control. "Jasmine's fabricating stories because she can't accept our divorce." "Then you won't mind explaining this to the hospital board," Jasmine replied, gesturing toward the restaurant entrance where Dr. Winters and several board members now stood with Agent Dawson. "Or to the district attorney's office. Or to our children." Lewis's face contorted with rage. "You vindictive. Choose your next words carefully," Agent Dawson interrupted, approaching their table. "Dr. Lewis Carter, I'm placing you under arrest for medical fraud, financial crimes, and ethical violations under the Medical Practice Act." The restaurant fell silent as Dawson recited Miranda rights. Rihanna sat frozen, her own revenge supplanted by something far more comprehensive than she had planned. "You've been planning this," Lewis hissed as an officer handcuffed him. "All those months of playing the agreeable ex-wife." 15 years, Lewis," Jasmine said, her voice low but firm. "You had 15 years of living your life. I needed 3 months to expose it." As they led him away, Rihanna remained at the table, staring at her half-empty wine glass. "I didn't know about the children," she said quietly. "I believe you," Jasmine replied. "Your mother deserved justice too." In the weeks that followed, the story exploded across medical and mainstream news. Lewis faced multiple felony charges. His medical license suspended pending trial. The fertility clinic was shut down, pending a complete investigation. Dozens of families came forward, seeking answers about their children's genetic origins. The financial repercussions were immediate and comprehensive. Lewis's hidden assets were frozen, and the court appointed a forensic accountant to trace every dollar he had diverted. Jasmine's children's financial future was secured through a trust established with recovered funds. Dr. Brooks approached Jasmine after Lewis's preliminary hearing. "Ashford is establishing an ethics review committee to oversee reproductive services when they reopen. They've asked me to lead it." "Congratulations," Jasmine said sincerely. "Actually," Dr. Brooks hesitated, "I suggested we co-chair it. Your perspective would be invaluable." The offer surprised her. For 15 years, she had been Jasmine Carter, the surgeon's supportive wife. Her identity had been subsumed by Lewis's career, his needs, his image. Now she was being asked to step forward as herself. 6 months after the gala, Jasmine sat across from Rihanna at a different restaurant. Their unlikely alliance had formed during the legal proceedings. Two women manipulated by the same man for different reasons. "Do you regret it?" Rihanna asked. "Exposing everything." Jasmine considered the question carefully. "The children will eventually learn the truth. They'll learn that their origins aren't what we thought. But that doesn't change who they are or how much I love them. The foundation of their lives was built on lies. I chose truth, however difficult." On the day the children learned the truth about their origins, Jasmine gathered them in the living room. Clutching a photo album filled with memories, from birthdays to vacations, she spoke candidly. "You are my children," she said, her voice breaking. "No test result, no lie, no betrayal changes that. Chose you. I fought for you. And I will always love you." Emma, the eldest, hugged her tightly, while the twins clung to her legs. In that moment, the family's bond transcended biology, forged instead by love, resilience, and honesty. That night, watching her children sleep in the home they had kept despite Lewis's attempts to force its sale, Jasmine felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction or vindication, but liberation. The perfect family illusion had shattered, but in its place was something authentic. She was no longer living someone else's carefully constructed lie. For the first time in 15 years, she was authoring her own story. Messy, complicated, and absolutely hers. 6 months after that fateful night at Vincenzo's, life had settled into an unfamiliar rhythm for Jasmine Carter, or rather Jasmine Bennett, as she now called herself. She had reclaimed her maiden name not out of spite but as a symbolic act of reclaiming her identity. It wasn't just about shedding Lewis's name. It was about stepping fully into who she truly was. A woman defined by strength, love, and authenticity, not by the man she once married. The house in Oaked Heights remained theirs, a testament to her determination during the divorce proceedings. Lewis's attempt to sell it and force them into uprooting their lives had been thwarted when Jasmine presented evidence of his hidden assets. The court ruled in her favor, ensuring financial stability for their children through a trust funded by recovered funds. Every room in the home carried echoes of their shared history, yet Jasmine felt no bitterness. Instead, she saw reminders of what mattered most: raising 3 incredible children who were kind, curious, and resilient despite the chaos around them. On this particular evening, Jasmine stood in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The aroma of roasted garlic and herbs filled the air as Emma chopped vegetables beside her, humming along to soft jazz playing on the speaker. Alex and Ryan sat at the island, arguing good-naturedly over whose turn it was to set the table. Their laughter mingled with the clinking of silverware, creating a symphony of normalcy that Jasmine cherished more than ever. She glanced at the calendar pinned to the fridge. Tomorrow marked 1 year since the gala, the night everything changed. A year ago, she would have been consumed by fear and uncertainty. Now she felt grounded, whole. Life hadn't returned to normal, because nothing could erase the scars left by Louis's betrayal. But perhaps normal wasn't the goal anymore. Perhaps authenticity was. After dinner, they gathered in the living room, a ritual Jasmine had started shortly after the truth came out. At first, these evenings were heavy with unspoken questions and tentative conversations. Over time, however, they evolved into something sacred, a space where honesty reigned supreme. Tonight, Jasmine decided it was time to share something she'd kept close to her heart. "I've been thinking," she began, drawing her children's attention. "We've talked a lot about the past year, about how our family came to be and why things happened the way they did." Her voice softened as she looked at each of them. "But tonight, I want to talk about moving forward." Emma tilted her head, her hazel eyes reflecting curiosity. "What do you mean?" Jasmine smiled faintly. "I mean, we can't change where we came from or who we are genetically. But we get to decide what that means for us. You're my children, not because of biology but because of choice. 'Cause I chose you every single day for 15 years. And I will continue choosing you, loving you no matter what." Alex frowned slightly. "Do you think we'll ever meet our biological father?" "It's possible," Jasmine replied honestly. "But whether or not we do, it doesn't change anything about who you are. Your identities aren't tied to DNA. They're shaped by your experiences, your values, your choices. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you mine." Ryan spoke up hesitantly. "Does it bother you, not being biologically related to us?" For a moment, Jasmine paused, considering his question. Then she reached out and took his hand. "No," she said firmly. "Because being your mother isn't about genetics. It's about showing up for the hard days, the messy days, the beautiful ones too. It's about fighting for you even when it feels impossible. And I promise you this. I will always fight for you." Tears glistened in Emma's eyes as she leaned forward to hug her mother tightly. Alex and Ryan followed suit, wrapping their arms around her in a collective embrace. In that moment, Jasmine realized something profound. Her family wasn't broken. It had simply transformed. They were stronger now, bound not by blood but by love and truth. Later that night, after tucking the twins into bed and kissing Emma goodnight, Jasmine stepped onto the back porch. The cool autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves, and the sky above glittered with stars. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and sipped chamomile tea, letting the quiet soothe her soul. Her phone buzzed softly on the table beside her. It was a text from Rihanna. Thinking about tomorrow. Want to grab coffee? Jasmine hesitated before replying. Her unlikely alliance with Rihanna had grown into something neither of them expected, a cautious friendship forged in the aftermath of shared pain. They weren't close, but they understood each other in ways few others could. Both had been betrayed by the same man, though for vastly different reasons. Both had sought justice, only to find healing in its wake. "Sure," Jasmine typed back. Same place as last time. Rihanna responded almost immediately. Perfect. See you then. As Jasmine stared up at the constellations, she thought about how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been frozen in shock, clutching a blood-red lipstick stain as proof of her shattered reality. Today, she stood tall, unshaken by the storms that had once threatened to destroy her. She had faced betrayal, uncovered lies, and fought battles she never imagined she'd have to fight. Yet here she was, still standing, still thriving. In the silence of the night, Jasmine made a silent vow to herself. She would no longer live in the shadow of someone else's expectations. She would honor the sacrifices she'd made without losing sight of her own dreams. She would continue co-chairing the Ethics Review Committee alongside Dr. Brooks, advocating for transparency and accountability in reproductive medicine. She would write the next chapter of her life, not as Lewis Carter's ex-wife, but as Jasmine Bennett, a woman determined to leave her mark on the world. And so, under the vast expanse of stars, Jasmine allowed herself to dream again. For the first time in years, those dreams belonged entirely to her. This ending encapsulates Jasmine's growth, celebrates her bond with her children, and hints at hope for the future. It balances emotional depth with a sense of resolution, leaving readers inspired by her resilience and courage. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our community of powerful storytellers. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you have handled Jasmine's situation? And if you know someone who needs to hear this tale of strength and resilience, share this video with them. Together we can inspire others to reclaim their power and rewrite their own stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, no matter how dark life may seem, there's always a way forward when you choose truth over illusion. I'll see you again soon with more incredible stories. Until then, take care and stay strong.